Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone in between, Jason, welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, I feel like we just did one of these things a couple days ago, huh? Well, you know, there's some things you can always count on. Me doing a tier list and then new cards coming out to invalidate that tier list. Well, not exactly. So, last time we were here, we did a tier list for the best decks post the skill rebalance. Well, new cards have come out now, and with it, before we get into a second best deck tier list, I think maybe we should wait more than 2 days before making one of those. Let's talk about what staples we should be playing. So, in front of me we have a massive list of pretty much all the generically playable cards. Mostly spell traps, some monsters. As you know, there are some good quote-unquote staple monsters, and we have a very normal tier list, S, A, B, C, D. This is mostly just the impact these cards have on your deck. So we're not doing anything fancy like I do for the deck tier list. So let's hop right in to our list. To start us off, we have this Ascension equip spell, putting that in the D tier. It is very low impact, not very good. Honestly, probably not even good in like an aggro pile. You probably shouldn't play that at all. Following, we have Poly. Poly is pretty damn good. It's not really playable in the new decks. You see that there's specific fusion support in the decks like the new Sevens Road Fusion and the Dark Galaxy Fusion and the Light Galaxy Fusion. They all really want fusion specifically. So while, yeah, polymerization is playable in those decks, that's not really necessary. It's pretty much just like a waste of a legend slot if you go for that. Following that, we have the All-Seeing Harvey. This is one of our monsters who are kind of like a generic staple. I'm going to put her in C tier. Honestly, while her effect to take a peek at back row or face down monsters and possibly pop those face down monsters is really nice, we're not really in a world where you want to be playing her. Like, she can't slot into any of the best decks because their skill requirements completely box her out, so it's a little rough to play more of these generic monsters. I'd honestly say if you're going for something like a Masochist run, maybe you could use her, but I don't know about playing her outside of that. Got Star Restart here. I'm going to go ahead and put that also in C tier with the All-Seeing Harvey. So the thing with Star Restart is, while it is generically playable, the decks that use the most aren't really the best decks in the format, and the new limit they put on Star Restart also keeps it out of those decks. So while, yeah, I'm sure the best decks wouldn't prefer having their, Dark Galaxy would love to have Pale Rider come back, Light Galaxy would love Lionak to be reborn, all those kinds of things, but they have better cards that are also limited 3, so you wouldn't really find space for Star Restart in those decks. Following that, we have Stealth Agik. I'm actually going to put Stealth Agik in B tier. There's a new resurgent of like 1-for-1 just replacing cards in your hand and pitching them. A lot of the best decks right now really want some cards engraved and are playing other cards to kind of give them these 1-for-1 trades, like the Dark Galaxy skill, which pitches up to 2 cards to then draw 2 cards. Stealth Agik is kind of just like another +1. Well, it's a +0. You go even on card advantage. So I would say if you are playing more of like a budget version of like a Dark Galaxy deck or something like that, I would definitely consider putting Stealth Agik in your deck if you're really tough out on budget. Next up, we got Heavenly Bliss. It's still not a Bliss format, I'll be honest. This card can be played in some decks. I think it fits the best in like max summon decks, but even then, it's not as impactful as some of our other new traps, which I would say you should definitely run over it. Another card for the S tier, we have Trap Hole. We are still in a format where Dragon is pretty powerful, which lets a card like Trap Hole be really good at just, stopping them in their tracks by popping a Dragios or Miragios. But the issue with Trap Hole is that we're back to also having a lot of special summon decks, and Trap Hole can only hit normal or tribute summons. So while yes, it is a really good card that I am putting on S tier just because of how prevalent dragons will be, it isn't really that great on the other top 3 decks. I'm going to put Hammer Crush down here in D tier. So it's weird. Obviously having spell trap destruction is nice, but I feel like at this point the best decks you should be playing are playing their own archetypal MSTs, which is why for some reason I keep including the archetypal MSTs on the list. They go A tier. I'm not putting them in S tier because they don't just win you a game usually, but you of course really need them, and you'd much rather have those over a Hammer Crush. Following that, another card for the D tier, we have Boltricorn. Thankfully, we're kind of seeing Boltricorn kind of fade out of being generically played. It is still really good in machine decks, but I think we're finally moved the card pool past where you would just play a random Boltricorn if you're not locked out of it by your skill. Yeah, locking down a spell trap is nice, just completely leaving it abandoned on the field, but it's not something we really want these days. And like I said with the issue with Harvey, the new decks just stop you from playing this completely. Now we have a new top tier card, Compulsory Evacuation Device. First of all, before I say anything, big warning for people looking to play Compulse. This, while it is a legend card, this is actually a different card from the original Yu-Gi-Oh's Compulse. This card requires you to activate it in response to either a normal summon, special summon, or a player activating a spell card. All those restrictions are for both players, by the way, so you can actually, on your own turn, if you have a previously set Compulse, normal summon a guy, Compulse something on the field. It's a decent play. If you're not really sure what the opponent's going for, you can just toggle off and save the Compulse for your turn and use it aggressively like I just mentioned. I personally have been having a lot of fun playing Compulse now in the current format, just getting to play like a real toggle Andy, just like the way I play Master Duel, where it's like, oh no, don't worry, I don't have any hand traps. No, yeah. Aluber? No hand traps. Oh, Branded Fusion. Okay, Ash Blossom that, Following, we have Monster Reincarnation, throwing that into the B tier, because it's not a mandatory include. It's also seen it's a big loss in play from max decks, which were previously playing Reincarnation to just grab pieces out of the grave. As it stands, only the previous pure Batarion builds are gonna want Reincarnation, and even then, pure Batarion isn't exactly great. So I'd say, well, yeah, it is definitely playable. I would assume you don't want that. Following, we have the Guard. The Guard's interesting. So this card it's fine. It's decent, but where it kind of shines is just these stall decks I've been seeing play recently. I know I encountered a couple of them on ladder last format before the skill rebalance, where basically they just played a critical mass of all the trap cards they could, and then just tried to stall you out until they could either go for a massive Magnum Overlord play or something like a mill strategy. I've seen both of those. And while, yeah, that's certainly something, it's not really enough to kind of win you the game or save you from death. Got Eclipse? No. Throwing that in D tier. It's fine if you're expecting a lot of mirrors, where you could kind of play it in like the Spellcaster deck, the new 7-Road deck. But if you're thinking what they're going to end on in attack position, it's probably going to be the big fusion guys, and you just got to think, am I really going to trade my fusion guys for their fusion guys? Really? I don't think it's very good. Following, we have the Warrior Returning Alive. I'm going to throw that in B tier. This one isn't as generic as all the others, so I keep forgetting to even take it off these like lists in the first place. But listen, if you want to be brave and play Warriors, go ahead. He's right here. But if you're playing Heroes that don't play that at all, you should instead play Pot of Greed, which goes to S tier. Of course, it's Pot of Greed. It's Pot of Greed. Of course, you want to play Pot of Greed, don't you? It's just Pot of Greed. You just draw 2 cards. Obviously, there are decks that need a specific legend spell or can at least contest this one, but honestly, draw 2 cards. Like, how do you beat that? Following, we have another new card, and it's going right to the S tier, X-Cutie Riding. This card is so cool. Basically, if you're not familiar, the basics, I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but what this card does is when the opponent summons a monster, you can special summon from your grave that have less attack than that monster, and then you can lower the attacks of 2 monsters in the opponent's field by a pretty significant amount. I think that's really cool. It's really cool that we're getting more trap cards that let you interact with the opponent and don't just, they don't just pop an attack. We're finally getting like unique interaction with our back row, and I think that's really cool. We got Pierce going right into the D tier. honestly, most of the best decks just get piercing through other means, so Pierce itself gets D tier because we don't really need it. Widespread, I'm actually going to put Widespread over here in B tier. Usually it would go up here in S with the Pot of Greeds and its ilk, but the issue with Widespread right now is the best decks can give big boss monsters trap destruction immunity or pure card destruction immunity. So if you're running the only card to out those big monsters destroys them, well, sorry, you've already been countered before you even started the game. The addition of Compulse and Executed Writing have really taken the spot of Widespread Ruin, pretty much making it a little bit obsolete, but still very playable. It's still playable against dragons. It's still playable against previous decks like psychics and all that. Problem though, which puts it so low, is that it's just not good against the top 3 decks people are playing right now. And speaking of cards that aren't good against those decks, we have Card Restoration, one of my favorite cards in the game, which honestly is getting a B tier just because the life gain is just not enough. The extra cards are nice. The extra cards are really nice, but it's just not enough. It just doesn't do enough. A lot of the time, you find yourself just being swung over for big numbers this format. I know specifically the new Sevens Road Fusion boss monster gets absolutely huge, and that ends up being a big problem. We got Fusion. I don't know why I put Fusion on the list. Honestly, Fusion's one of those. Fusion and the MST here, it's like, you know when you need to play them, right? It's obvious when you need to play them, so they get A tiers just for that, because they're not game-ending cards. They're literally like, in Fusion's case, it's literally mandatory to just make your deck function. Also going A tier, Rising Light Angel Essel. Essel is incredible. She's still good, even in the current format. Only issue is you need to be playing a deck that has a skill that does not lock you out of her, which isn't very many at the moment, but she's still a really good card. So she still gets a very high ranking. Also going to S tier, Secret Order. Yes, Light Galaxy is one of the best decks right now, it's in the top 3 at least. And of course, it is playing Secret Order. Or is it? I say, or is it? Because the new Light Galaxy skill adds a Secret Order from outside your deck, which is insane. So while I would like to say that that makes it a really powerful card, it's just at an absolutely obscene power level. Doing that gets around the limit 3 on Secret Order, which is crazy. So you might encounter Light Galaxy decks that don't even play it, and instead just plan to add it off the skill. It's crazy. The card is still really good. There's still plenty of other generic decks that aren't Light Galaxy that do want to play it, and it's still really good in those, but those aren't exactly the meta right now. Following that, we forgot Forever Freeze. I'm going to throw that into B tier. It's a good card. It's good against dragons, I'll say that, but it's only good against one deck in the top 5, so what can I say? It gets a low rating just because it's not good against Light Galaxy, Dark Galaxy, or Seven's Road. Still a really good card though. Still a card that I've been almost as wrong as Pod agreed on. Following up, we got Hammer Shot. Gonna throw that in A tier. Hammer Shot is a great card. Obviously, you're using it in positions where you're behind on the opponent. You know, why just pop whatever their highest attack point monster is, while you probably have 0 on field so you don't accidentally pop your own monster. The reason it gets A tier though is because we got a better card right here, and his name is Pot of Greed. It is a legend spell, so it conflicts with the Pot of Greed. So if you're thinking, oh, do I want to pop a card or do I want to draw a card that lets me, play the game? I would usually choose draw a card that lets you play the game. We got Ghost Cyclone. Ghost Cyclone's also going to go over here in A tier. The only issue with Ghost Cyclone is that's still limit 3, which is very fair. If this card was unlimited, I think at least Dark Galaxy would probably be playing it, and it's still just a massively powerful card. I think it's really good, but it's just not really the right format for it. But if you're playing a deck like, if you're playing a deck without limit 3, I would definitely side in some Ghost Cyclones. Or maybe if you're playing a deck that doesn't have an absolutely mandatory at 3, limit 3, maybe side some of those out and put your Ghost Cyclones in. Got Musical Princess also going here in B tier. I would usually put Musical Princess in like a C or a D tier, but pretty interesting. The current Sevens Road deck, I find sometimes you just end on one big dude, and that's a really good spot to throw Musical Princess, honestly. It's a very versatile card, considering it the only requirement is you just have one monster. The biggest boost for Musical Princess is that we're not really in a format where the big boss monsters of the best in decks top back row. It was the issue with the Gaia format is that the Gaia Metarion cards and the hero cards all had their big guys do big damage and also pop your back row, which was just absurd. We don't have that, so I put Musical Princess a little bit higher. Actually, you know what? I'm going to slide it up to A tier. I think it's actually A tier. Let's actually do that. I talked myself into putting it A tier. Dragon's Fortitude, if you're playing dragons, it's A tier. But if you're not playing dragons, what are you doing? Why are you even putting this in your deck? This is another card that's it's probably a little not generic enough to make it on this list, but it's still here anyway because it's in my staples folder. So here it is. B tier. I would say D for dragons, but it's better than that. Oh, Combustion, D tier. Combustions. I mean, if the 7th row deck was just ending on 7th row Magician, I would say Combustion's good, but we're not. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave that in. Talismanic Seal Ray, here we go. Throwing that up in A tier. I do love Talismanic Seal Ray. I do think most decks it is a mandatory one of include at the very least. There are some decks now that I don't think it's very good in. Something like Worms. I think it's a little awkward in a deck like Seven's Road or a deck like Worms. Even with some of the new Dark Galaxy support, that a lot of the stuff wants to like shuffle back to pay for things, shuffling back for your like requirement. So I would say it gets a little awkward in some of the newer decks, but it's still a very good include for pretty much any deck. I'm gonna throw Monster Calling over here in C tier. Honestly, C for Calling? No, that's not the reason why. The thing with Monster Calling is it's kind of going to be finding its niche in the new version of Gaia that people haven't really been experimenting with. It's a little strange. The deck isn't great, and then Monster Calling is only really going to find its place there. Speaking of cards that can't find a place, Shield and Sword. This card is still pretty bad. It's only getting worse over time. All it does is switch the attack and defense, and hey, doesn't do anything into a set board. It doesn't really do much into decks where monsters have similar attack and defenses, and it's competing with Pot of Greed and Hammer Shot for your legend spell, which, you know, it pretty much loses out there. Boom, another card for the S tier. We got Rice Terrace Crisis. Really good now, especially with all the special summoning, is really good against Seven's Road, is really good against Dark Galaxy, is really good against Light Galaxy. It's great against all those decks. So, it'll find a nice place in most of your decks. Bleach Mortar, you can go in C tier. This is generically usable, despite, you know, there being bleach / soap support. It's just fine. It's just a fine card that you could play if you felt like it. You don't really need it. It's just a generic burn plus attack modulation. It's whatever. It's not great. It's not fantastic, but it's not awful. So it gets a C tier. Also, in C tier, I'm going to put Pot of Avarice. I think the only deck this is still good in is Worms, but even in that, I'm pretty sure you still would rather play Pot, just because of like a lot of the newer support needing shufflebacks. It's a similar situation as Talismanic Seal Ray, except Avarice also competes with Pot of Greed for your slot. So Avarice just gets, you know, a much lower ranking. Here's something that might shock you. Buffered Slime. My absolute goat. Buffered Slime. It's been every deck I ever made since I realized it was good. B tier. Now, why is Slime in B tier? Well, that's because all the fusions in the best decks are too high a level to be Slime. So we just can't play them. It'd be a really good card if it didn't have a level restriction, but it has a level restriction. So it is pretty bad against the current decks. We got worse XQD writing in this rivalry card. This card's always been bad. It's the worst card they've ever limited in the game, and it's still really bad. And XQD writing just eats its lunch. Now we got a little draw band here, a little rhythmical performer. I'm gonna go ahead and throw her into B tier. She is pretty much generically usable as Essel. If you're playing a deck that can run Essel, you're probably also playing a deck that can run the performer. So I would say, hey, run them in the same deck, but she's not as good, so she gets a lower rating. Tribute to the Doomed. A tier. Usually Tribute would be bouncing between S and A, but I think with the inclusion of Hammer Shot, Tribute has basically too many competitors to be in the almost mandatory S tier inclusion zone. Now we got a really bizarre card. This Bizarre Armor, it's very strange. It just has like this weird attack modulation effect. I don't think it's very good, so I'm throwing it in D tier. Not a lot to say about it. King's Majesty. This card saw a lot of play in the previous format just because you needed a lot of cards to really stop Gaia Metarion from killing you, despite the fact that they pop most of your back row anyway. The issue with this card is it does require a level 1 Fiend. Also, the new limiting on it is really bad for it. So it still gets A tier for being a great card, but it requires way too much to be an S tier auto included into your deck. Now we got card revitalization. I'm going to throw that into a C tier. It's fine if you're playing Stall. That's all I got for you. Siesta Torero, C tier. He's Bugamoon on legs, and that's fine. The problem is most decks just say you can't play him, so he doesn't get really much of a placing. He can't be placed if he can't be played, right? And to the S tier, we got Negate Attack. Of course, Negate Attack, one of the key, most important cards in the game. It does fight for space with Compulse, honestly. These two are just fighting to see who gets first, who gets second. The only issue is now that Negate Attack is limit 1, ends up being a little rougher, where I think Compulse might find itself in a much nicer position over Negate Attack without any limits being on Compulse. Now we got Call the Earthbound. This is a card I don't really like too much, so I'm just going to put it in C tier, despite the fact that I never really played with it. But it gets C tier for Call. Following that, we got the Barrier. I put the Barrier over here in B tier. It is much better now compared to the previous format, but it really isn't too great when you look at all the other great trap cards we have now. It's honestly right here, Holding Hands with Dragon's Fortitude being pretty much the same card between the two of them. And finally, we have our last card, the king of the generic staples himself. If your deck had no restriction, if your deck needed a legend monster, or should I say didn't need a specific legend monster, you would throw in the big man himself, Ancient Gear Golem, and I would say he is currently... he's A tier. He used to be a pretty much auto including the S tier, I would assume. I'm not going to fact check my own videos. Honestly, fact checking would ruin the video. But the thing with Gear Golem, right? He's still really good. Big 3k guy. Crazy. Piercing. Insane. We're in another format where no meta decks can play him. And how could I tell you, oh yeah, you have to put this deck card... you have to put this card in your deck when your deck can't play him. He could be fine in like an aggro strategy going forward. But the other issue with Gear Golem, we have boss monsters that are going to outpace him in attack. The new Seven's Road Fusion monster has a continuous effect that boosts him to at least over 3k. Gear Golem can't do anything about that. He's only 3k. He's locked at 3k. You have to use a different card to boost him. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. He's just not as good as a card on his own as he used to be. Not to say that you shouldn't be thinking of him when a machine deck becomes viable. Like, listen, the Ancient Gear support's coming any day now. There is Rush exclusive Ancient Gear support. You will find out way more about that on my channel in the future. Just saying. But that all said, here is our list. And I want to know, if there is a card I forgot on this list, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. If there is a ranking you disagree with, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. If you think I've made a terrible meta call and you think some of these cards should or shouldn't be in S tier, leave that in the comments below. I want to thank everyone so much for watching, and keep an eye on this channel. Subscribe to the channel, keep an eye on it. We'll be doing a lot more content of all the brand new cards soon. Alright? Thank you so much. Goodbye.